Look, I will be honest with you. When the humans first showed up in our sector, we thought they were just another species of soft-bodied idiots who'd accidentally stumbled into faster-than-light travel. You know the type. Wide-eyed, optimistic, probably still believing in things like universal peace and fair trade agreements. The kind of species that gets eaten by space pirates before their first lunar cycle is up. We were wrong. So spectacularly, catastrophically wrong, that I'm still processing the trauma 3 stellar rotations later. My name is Crix9, and I'm what you'd call a xenobiologist for the Galactic Council. Fancy title, boring job. I catalog new species, rate their threat levels, file reports that nobody reads. It's steady work, pays well, and usually involves 0% chance of having my worldview completely shattered by a bipedal mammal with an attitude problem. Usually, the day everything went sideways started like any other. I was floating in my observation pod above Earth's moon, sipping my morning nutrient paste, and wondering why I'd chosen such a mind-numbing career. The humans had been surprisingly quiet for the past few rotations. No major wars, no planetary extinctions, no attempts to build weapons out of kitchen utensils. Frankly, it was suspicious. That's when my communication array started screaming. Emergency transmission from the outer rim. Priority Alpha. The kind of alert that makes your respiratory organs seize up and your waste elimination system go into overdrive. I nearly choked on my paste as the message materialized in front of me. Council Station 7 to all monitoring units. We have a situation. Unknown vessel has breached the forbidden zone around Nexus Prime. Repeat. Something just flew straight into the Devourer's tomb. My tentacles went numb. The Devourer's tomb. Even saying the name made my species equivalent of skin crawl. That wasn't just any restricted zone. That was where we'd imprisoned Vorthak the Endless, a creature so powerful and malevolent that it had taken 17 allied species working together just to contain it. The prison had been sealed for over 2,000 years, protected by enough firepower to crack a small moon and warning beacons in every known language. Nobody, and I mean nobody, goes near the tomb. Not unless they have a death wish and a complete lack of survival instincts. Identification on the vessel, I transmitted back, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew the answer. Human registry, single occupant. They are actually attempting to breach the outer containment field. Of course they were. Of course it was a human, because apparently, when the universe puts up a giant sign that says danger, cosmic horror sealed within, do not approach, humans read it as a personal invitation. I immediately patched into the Council's emergency frequency. The chatter was pure panic. Sir, the human vessel has passed the 3rd containment barrier. How is that possible? Those barriers were designed to stop a full battle fleet. I don't know. They're using some kind of... Is that duct tape? Are they seriously using adhesive strips to modify their ship's hull configuration? I pulled up the live feed and nearly ejected my lunch. There, on my screen, was a patched-together human spacecraft that looked like it had been assembled by a particularly creative child with access to a scrapyard. Plasma burns covered half the hull. The engine configuration defied at least 4 laws of physics. And yes, there was definitely duct tape holding several critical components together. But somehow, impossibly, it was working. The ship was carving through our most advanced defensive systems like they were made of paper. "Who is this lunatic?" I demanded. The response came back, after a few tense moments. Records show the vessel belongs to one Marcus Riley, age 32, occupation listed as Salvage Specialist. Salvage Specialist. Right, because when you are about to poke an eldritch abomination with a stick, you definitely want to send in someone whose primary job qualification is good at finding shiny things in dangerous places. I watched in horrified fascination as Riley's ship approached the final barrier. This wasn't just any barrier. This was the last line of defense, powered by a contained star and monitored by AI systems so advanced they made our best computers look like counting stones. It had never been breached. Not once in 2 millennia. Riley's ship stopped just outside the barrier's edge. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this human had finally realized the magnitude of what they were attempting. Maybe they'd turn around and go home to whatever mudball planet had spawned them. Instead, I watched Riley's ship extend what appeared to be a communications array. Then, in a move that will haunt my nightmares until my dying day, the human opened a channel to the tomb itself. "Hey there, ugly." "Yeah, you, the space squid with the bad attitude. I hear you have been locked up for a while. Must be pretty boring in there, huh? How about we have ourselves a little chat?" The silence that followed was deafening. Every monitoring station in the sector went dead quiet. Even the background radiation seemed to pause in shock. Then, from the depths of the tomb, something answered. The voice that emerged was like the sound of dying stars, ancient beyond measure, and filled with malice that made my species' concept of evil seem quaint by comparison. It spoke in a language so old that our translation systems nearly crashed trying to process it. But Marcus Riley, this insane suicidal human, just laughed. "Oh, come on now. You can do better than that. I have heard scarier things from my ex-wife when I forgot to take out the garbage." What happened next defied everything we thought we knew about cosmic horror entities. Vorthak the Endless, devourer of worlds, nightmare of the void, started laughing too, not the maniacal laughter of madness, not the cruel chuckling of a predator toying with prey. This was genuine amusement, the kind of laugh you share with an old friend who just told a particularly good joke. "Interesting," Vorthak rumbled, his voice now carrying undertones of curiosity rather than pure menace. "It has been quite some time since anyone spoke to me without cowering in terror first. What are you, little creature?" Riley's response was broadcast across every monitoring station in the sector. "Name's Marcus, and I'm human. I'm also completely insane, which probably explains why I'm talking to a cosmic horror instead of running away like a sensible person. But hey, life's too short to be sensible all the time, right?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A human, a member of a species we'd classified as moderately dangerous but ultimately harmless, was having a casual conversation with an entity that had once devoured 3 star systems just because it was bored. "Human," Vorthak mused. "Yes, I have heard whispers of your kind. The young species that refuses to know its place. Tell me, Marcus, the human, why have you come to my prison? Surely you must know that I am quite capable of ending your existence with a mere thought." Riley's reply came without hesitation. "Yeah, I figured as much. But here's the thing. I'm not here to fight you or worship you or any of that traditional stuff. I'm here because I made a bet. A bet. This maniac had risked triggering a galactic apocalypse because of a bet." "Go on," Vorthak said, and I could hear the amusement growing in his voice. "Well, I was at this bar on Proxima Station, right? And there's this group of Zephyrian traders talking about how humans are all cowards who hide behind their military when things get tough. Really got under my skin, you know. So I told them that not only are humans not cowards, but I could prove it by going somewhere no other species would dare to go, and bringing back proof that I was there." The cosmic horror was silent for a long moment. Then, "And you chose my tomb?" Seemed like the obvious choice. I mean, what's scarier than an imprisoned god thing that supposedly eats planets for breakfast? Plus, I figured if I survived the trip, I'd have one hell of a story to tell. I watched my readouts in growing disbelief as the final barrier, 2,000 years of our best defensive technology, simply opened. Like Vorthak was inviting Riley in for tea and biscuits. "You intrigue me, Marcus the human. Very well. Come inside, and we shall see if you are truly as fearless as you claim. But know this, many have entered my domain. None have left unchanged." Riley's ship glided through the opening without hesitation. Well, I have been needing a change of pace anyway. Fair warning though, I'm probably going to try to take a selfie with you for my social media page. Hope that's cool. As the barrier sealed shut behind the human ship, cutting off all communication, I realized that everything we thought we knew about humans was about to be proven catastrophically inadequate. Marcus Riley hadn't just entered the most dangerous location in known space. He'd somehow convinced its inhabitant to invite him in. And judging by the laughter that continued to echo from the tomb's depths, Vorthak the Endless was enjoying every minute of it. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of frantic council meetings, emergency protocols, and increasingly desperate attempts to establish contact with Riley's ship. Every xenobiologist, military strategist, and cosmic horror expert in the sector was mobilized. Plans were drawn up for everything from planetary evacuation to species relocation. We were preparing for the end of the world. But Marcus Riley was apparently having the time of his life. When the barriers finally reopened and his ship emerged from the tomb, every sensor in the sector locked onto him immediately. What we saw made our collective sanity take another hit. Riley's ship looked different. It was still the same cobbled-together mess of salvaged parts and questionable engineering decisions, but now it radiated an energy signature that made our most sensitive equipment shriek in alarm. More disturbing still, there was something attached to the ship's hull, something that looked suspiciously like a massive, ornate skull. The communication channel crackled to life, and Riley's voice came through as casual as if he'd just returned from a grocery run. Council Station 7, this is Marcus Riley requesting permission to dock. I have got some pretty interesting stuff to show you guys, and trust me, you are going to want to see this. As his ship approached the nearest council station, I found myself asking the question that would haunt xenobiologists for generations to come. What exactly had this human done in there? And more importantly, what was he bringing back with him? The skull mounted on his ship's hull seemed to grin at us through the void, and I had the uncomfortable feeling that our understanding of both humans and cosmic horrors was about to be turned completely upside down. The docking bay of Council Station 7 had never been so crowded. Every xenobiologist, military officer, and government official within 3 sectors had somehow squeezed themselves into the observation deck. We were all staring at the same impossible sight. Marcus Riley's ship, still radiating impossible energies, with what appeared to be the severed head of a cosmic god bolted to its hull like some kind of grotesque hood ornament. I pressed my sensory organs against the reinforced reporter, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The skull was massive, easily the size of a small shuttle, with bone structures that hurt to look at directly. Ancient runes covered its surface, glowing with an inner light that made our scanning equipment weep in confusion. Is it dead?" whispered Counselor Vex Prime, her usually commanding voice reduced to a terrified squeak. Nobody answered, because honestly, none of us had the faintest idea. In all our recorded history, no one had ever successfully killed a cosmic horror. They were supposed to be immortal, indestructible, eternal. Yet here was Marcus Riley, human salvage specialist and apparent miracle worker, hauling around what looked like Vorthak's decapitated head, like a trophy from a particularly successful fishing trip. The airlock cycled, and Riley stepped out of his ship, with all the casual confidence of someone who hadn't just committed what might technically be decide. He was exactly what you'd expect from a human. Average height, unremarkable features, wearing clothes that looked like they'd survived several explosions, and a questionable encounter with some kind of engine lubricant. The only thing unusual about him was his smile. It was the kind of smile that suggested he knew something the rest of us didn't, and that we probably weren't going to like it when we found out what it was. "Hey there, folks," Riley called out, waving cheerfully at the assembled crowd of terrified alien officials. "Sorry about the delay. Took longer than expected to load up my souvenir." Counselor Vex Prime stepped forward, her diplomatic training barely keeping her panic in check. "Mr. Riley, I must ask, what exactly happened in there? And is that truly the remains of Vorthak the Endless?" Riley scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Well, that's a bit of a story. Mind if I grab a coffee first? It's been a long day, and I have got quite a tale to tell." Coffee. The human wanted coffee. After potentially ending a cosmic threat that had haunted our nightmares for millennia, he wanted a caffeinated beverage. 20 minutes later, we were all crammed into the station's largest conference room, watching Riley sip what our food synthesizers optimistically called coffee, while casually sitting next to a device that was broadcasting live readings from his ship. The energy signatures coming from that skull were unlike anything in our databases. "All right," Riley said, setting down his cup. So, funny story. Turns out Vorthak isn't actually evil. The silence that followed was so complete that I could hear my own circulatory system working. I'm sorry, Councillor Vex Prime managed. Could you repeat that? Yeah. The whole Devourer of Worlds thing? Total misunderstanding. See, here's what really happened. Riley leaned back in his chair like he was about to regale us with a mildly amusing anecdote about his weekend. About 2,000 years ago, Vorthak was trying to communicate with the various species in this sector. Problem was, he's what you might call cosmically incompatible with normal reality. Every time he tried to make contact, star systems started having what you could generously call structural integrity issues. I felt my worldview beginning to crack. Are you saying that the destruction of the Kepler Alliance was accidental? Oh, completely. Vorthak felt terrible about it. Apparently, when you are a multi-dimensional entity trying to squeeze yourself into three-dimensional space just to say hello, things get a bit explosive. The poor guy has been stuck in that prison for 2 millennia, going slowly insane from boredom and guilt. Riley paused to take another sip of coffee while every sentient being in the room processed this information. The creature we'd been terrified of for generations was essentially a cosmic introvert, with communication problems. But I stammered. The psychic screams, the reality distortions, the pure malevolent energy readings. Depression, Riley said matter-of-factly. 2,000 years of solitary confinement will do that to anyone. Even cosmic entities have mental health issues, apparently. Who knew? Councillor Vex Prime was rapidly cycling through several different colors, which in her species indicated extreme emotional distress. Mr. Riley, if this is true, then we have been torturing an innocent being for 2 millennia. Yep, and let me tell you, when I explained that to Vorthak, he was not happy. Not world-ending unhappy, mind you, more like a really disappointed in galactic civilization unhappy, which, honestly, is somehow worse. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council had built its entire defense strategy around containing a threat that didn't actually exist. We'd spent enormous resources, shaped countless policies, and lived in fear of something that was essentially a misunderstood alien with social anxiety. So, I asked, dreading the answer, what exactly did you do? Riley's grin widened. Well, first I convinced him that not all species in the galaxy are complete jerks. Took some doing given the whole imprisoned for 2,000 years thing, but humans are pretty good at the whole righteous indignation routine when we put our minds to it. And then I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. The energy readings from Riley's ship suddenly spiked, and the skull mounted on his hull began to glow brighter. But instead of the malevolent radiance we'd expected, it pulsed with what could only be described as amusement. See, Vorthak's problem isn't that he's evil, it's that he's lonely. 2,000 years of isolation tends to make anyone a bit cranky. But humans, we are social creatures. We understand loneliness. So I offered him something your council never thought to provide, which was. Riley gestured toward his ship, friendship, and a job. The skull on Riley's hull actually chuckled, a sound that reverberated through the station's hull and made several junior officers faint. Allow me to introduce my new business partner, Riley continued, apparently oblivious to the fact that he'd just given half the room heart attacks. Vorthak, the Endless, former cosmic horror, current co-owner of Riley and Associates Salvage and Dimensional Consulting. The skull spoke, its voice now warm and oddly cheerful. Greetings, council members. I must apologize for the unpleasantness of our previous interactions. I was going through what Marcus calls a rough patch. I am much better now thanks to therapy and friendship. Therapy. The cosmic horror had been through therapy. You see, Vorthak continued, Marcus helped me realize that my powers, properly controlled, could be quite useful for legitimate purposes. Why devour worlds when you can help salvage operations locate valuable materials across multiple dimensions? Why inspire terror when you can provide consulting services for species dealing with their own cosmic-level problems? Riley nodded enthusiastically. Turns out, having a reformed cosmic entity as a business partner is incredibly lucrative. We have already got 3 contracts lined up. The Andromedans want help with a black hole that's been giving them trouble. The Centauri Federation needs someone to negotiate with a sentient nebula that's been blocking their trade routes. And there's this whole situation with time-traveling pirates that honestly sounds like it could be fun to sort out. Counselor Vex Prime looked like she was processing information that her brain simply wasn't equipped to handle. Mr. Riley, are you telling us that you rehabilitated a cosmic horror and turned him into a business partner? Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of weird, Riley admitted. But yeah, pretty much. Turns out most cosmic horrors are just regular folks who happen to exist on a scale that makes normal communication tricky. They need friends and purpose just like anyone else. The skull, Vorthak added. Marcus has taught me much about what you call social skills. Did you know that most species consider reality warping to be rude when performed without permission? I had no idea. No wonder everyone seems so upset all the time. I found myself laughing, actually laughing, at the absurdity of it all. Here we were, the supposedly advanced Galactic Council, and it took one crazy human with a salvage ship and an attitude problem to solve a cosmic crisis through the radical application of basic empathy and friendship. There is, however, one small complication, Riley said, his expression becoming slightly more serious. Of course there was. Because nothing involving humans was ever simple. The thing is, Vorthak's old prison is now empty, and there are apparently quite a few other cosmic entities out there who are in similar situations. Word's getting around that there's this human who actually listens to their problems instead of just trying to lock them up or blow them up. How many others? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Vorthak's skull tilted thoughtfully. Oh, perhaps 30 or 40 in this galactic cluster alone. There's Neith Gogoth, who's been trapped in a temporal loop for 3,000 years. Shub Nikarath, who's been sealed in a pocket dimension ever since that unfortunate incident with the vegan empire. And don't get me started on poor Yog Sothoth. He's been stuck in interdimensional customs for nearly a millennium over some paperwork error. Riley nodded. Yeah, so we are thinking of expanding the business. Riley, Vorthak and Associates Cosmic Problem Solver. We are already working on getting Neith out of his time loop. Turns out all he wanted was someone to play chess with, and being stuck reliving the same day for 3 millennia made him a bit cranky. The implications hit me like a cargo hauler traveling at full speed. The galaxy wasn't facing one reformed cosmic horror. We were looking at the rehabilitation of dozens of entities that we'd classified as existential threats. Mr. Riley, Counselor Vex Prime said slowly, are you suggesting that most of the cosmic horrors in our threat database are simply misunderstood? Pretty much. I mean, some of them are probably actually dangerous. Cthulhu's apparently a real piece of work. And don't get me started on the thing that lives in the Horsehead Nebula. But most of them, they are just really, really lonely beings who exist on a scale that makes normal social interaction difficult. Vorthak added, Marcus has proposed what he calls a cosmic rehabilitation program. We would visit imprisoned entities, assess their actual threat level versus their psychological needs, and provide appropriate intervention. Think of it as social work, but for beings who accidentally cause supernovas when they sneeze. I looked around the conference room at the faces of my colleagues. We were all thinking the same thing. Everything we thought we knew about cosmic threats was wrong. The human, this one, supposedly unremarkable human, had just rewritten the fundamental assumptions of galactic security, with nothing more than empathy, curiosity, and an apparently supernatural ability to make friends with things that should have driven him insane. There's just one more thing, Riley said, finishing his coffee. Vorthak wanted me to ask about getting his prison sentence officially commuted. Turns out he's been technically innocent this whole time, and he'd like his record cleared so he can apply for a legitimate business license. And that's how Marcus Riley, human salvage specialist and part-time cosmic therapist, not only survived an encounter with our greatest nightmare, but convinced him to fill out paperwork to start a small business. The skull mounted on Riley's ship gave what could only be described as a sheepish grin. I know it's unusual, but I really would like to contribute positively to galactic society. Marcus has shown me that redemption is possible, even for someone like me. Plus, the dental coverage in his employee benefits package is surprisingly comprehensive. As I watched Riley and his cosmic horror business partner prepare to leave the station, apparently they had a consultation with a sentient asteroid field that had been having communication issues with mining operations. I realized that humans weren't just unpredictable. They were the single most dangerous force in the galaxy, not because they could destroy things, but because they could make friends with anything. Even cosmic nightmares that existed beyond the boundaries of sanity apparently weren't immune to human charm and basic decency. And that, frankly, was more terrifying than any world-devouring entity could ever be. The last thing I heard, as Riley's ship departed, was Vorthak humming what sounded suspiciously like a human folk song, his massive skull somehow managing to look content as they headed off to their next impossible job. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no, it gets so much worse. 3 rotations later, I received another emergency transmission. This time it was from the Regional Sector Authority, and the panic in the operator's voice made my previous anxiety seem like mild concern. Council Station 7, we have a situation. There's a human vessel approaching the screaming void of Zerion. They are broadcasting some sort of music? I pulled up the feed and nearly ejected my morning nutrition supplement all over my console. There was Riley's ship again, but now it had been modified. The skull of Vorthak had been joined by what appeared to be a massive crystalline formation that pulsed with temporal energy and some kind of writhing tentacle mass that seemed to exist in at least 6 dimensions simultaneously. The music being broadcast was unmistakably human, something cheerful and upbeat that our translation systems identified as Don't Stop Me Now by an ancient Earth musical group called Queen. But it was being performed as a 4-part harmony, with voices that included Riley's recognizably human tones, Vorthak's cosmic rumble, something that sounded like wind chimes made of pure mathematics, and a voice that seemed to speak in colors. Regional Authority, this is Marcus Riley of Riley, Vorthak, and Associates. We are here for our appointment with the Temporal Screamer. Is he ready for his consultation? The response came in the form of a sound that had previously been classified as a weaponized psychic attack, a shriek that could shatter the sanity of anyone who heard it. But now, filtered through whatever Riley had done to his communication system, it almost sounded like laughter. Excellent. Riley's voice came back, completely unaffected by what should have been a mind-melting assault. Ninth Gogoth here says you have been stuck in that time loop for way too long, buddy. We have brought some board games, a few good books, and Shubnikarath makes excellent interdimensional coffee. How about we get you out of there and you can tell us all about it? I watched in growing horror as Riley's ship disappeared into the screaming void, a spatial anomaly so dangerous that we'd evacuated 3 entire star systems just to be safe. The last transmission we received was Riley's voice cheerfully announcing, "Don't worry, folks, we will have this sorted out in no time. Ninth says time loops are actually pretty easy to fix once you know the trick." That was when I realized the true scope of what we were dealing with. Marcus Riley wasn't just rehabilitating cosmic horrors, he was collecting them. The reports started flooding in from across the galaxy. Riley's ship, now apparently functioning as some kind of mobile cosmic therapy center, was showing up at restricted zones, forbidden sectors, and nightmare dimensions that had been sealed away since before most species had achieved spaceflight. And everywhere he went, the impossible happened. Ancient evils became helpful consultants. Eldritch abominations turned into enthusiastic tour guides. World-ending monstrosities started small businesses focused on conflict resolution and interdimensional customer service. The Vegan Empire reported that Shubna Kurath, the writhing mass of infinite tentacles, had helped them resolve a trade dispute with the Andromedan Collective by serving as a neutral mediator. Apparently, When you are a multidimensional entity that exists outside normal concepts of space and time, you develop excellent perspective on petty territorial squabbles. The Centauri Federation sent a formal thank you note after Yog-Sothoth, the key and the gate, had helped them establish faster-than-light communication networks across their entire territory. Turns out, when you are the gate between dimensions, setting up interdimensional communication infrastructure is basically an afternoon hobby project. But the report that really made me question my life choices came from the Outer Rim Mining Consortium. They'd been having problems with what they described as aggressive spatial anomalies, disrupting their operations. Riley's team had apparently resolved the situation by discovering that the anomalies were actually a cosmic entity named Bob Nyarlathotep, who had been trying to file a noise complaint about the mining operations disturbing his meditation. Bob, the crawling chaos, had chosen to go by Bob, and according to the report, Bob was now working part-time as a geological consultant, helping the mining operations identify valuable resources, while ensuring they didn't accidentally drill into any more sleeping cosmic entities. It's actually quite common, the report noted. Miss Riley's associate, Bob, explains that many of the galaxy's mysterious disappearances and reality storms are simply cosmic entities trying to get some peace and quiet. A little advanced communication goes a long way toward preventing these misunderstandings. I was still processing this information when my communication array lit up with an incoming transmission. The origin point made my respiratory system seize up. It was coming from the dead zone of Epsilon Eridani, a region of space so hostile to life that it had been quarantined by joint decree of 17 different species. The voice that came through was unmistakably Riley's, though now he sounded like he was speaking from inside a cathedral, made of pure sound. "Hey there, Council Station 7. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up. We are making some really good progress out here. Turns out the dead zone isn't actually dead. It's just where Cthulhu Prime has been sleeping for the past 10,000 years, and boy howdy was he cranky about being woken up." The transmission was joined by another voice, this one sounding like the birth of stars set to a jazz rhythm. "Greetings, small beings. I am Cthulhu Prime, the burning wind, the living flame that consumes reality. Marcus has taught me the most fascinating human concept called indoor voice, and I must say it has greatly improved my ability to communicate without accidentally incinerating solar systems." Riley's voice came back, sounding pleased. "Yeah, Cthulhu's got a real talent for renewable energy projects. We are setting up a meeting with the Galactic Energy Consortium next week. Turns out when you are a living star with billions of years of experience in nuclear fusion, you have got some pretty good ideas about sustainable power generation." As the transmission continued, I learned that Riley's growing collection of reformed cosmic horrors had established what they called the Cosmic Rehabilitation and Community Outreach Program. They were offering services ranging from reality maintenance to existential therapy, and apparently had a waiting list 3 galaxies long. "Oh, and before I forget," Riley added, "we wanted to invite the Council to our first annual Cosmic Horror Appreciation Barbecue. It's going to be held in normal space-time this year. Vorthak's still working on his dimensional stabilization techniques, and everyone's welcome. Neith is bringing his famous temporal potato salad, and Shubnikurath makes these interdimensional burgers that are apparently quite popular." The transmission cut out, leaving me staring at my console in complete bewilderment. Somewhere out there, Marcus Riley was hosting barbecues for reformed cosmic nightmares, and they were apparently having the time of their lives. But the real shock came 2 days later, when I received an official communiqué from the Galactic Council's highest authority, the Assembly of Elder Races. These were beings so ancient and powerful that most species only knew them as myths and legends. They were the ones who had originally imprisoned entities like Vorthak, the architects of the galaxy's most fundamental laws and restrictions. The message was brief and to the point: request immediate meeting with human Marcus Riley. Urgent matter regarding cosmic entity management policies. Prepared to offer full diplomatic immunity and council recognition of rehabilitation program. The Elder Races, beings who had shaped galactic civilization for millions of years, wanted to meet with a human salvage specialist who had accidentally stumbled into cosmic social work. When I finally managed to arrange the meeting, it took place on Nexus Station, the most secure facility in known space. The assembly had gathered in full attendance, 12 beings representing the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy, each one capable of erasing entire star systems with a casual thought. Riley showed up in his patched-together ship, now accompanied by what appeared to be a small fleet of cosmic entities who had apparently decided to form an escort. As his ship docked, I counted at least 6 different reality distortions, 3 temporal anomalies, and something that looked suspiciously like a living constellation arranged in protective formation around him. He walked into the assembly chamber wearing the same oil-stained coveralls he'd had on during our first meeting, carrying a thermos of coffee and looking completely unfazed by the presence of beings that had been ancient when his species was still figuring out fire. The speaker for the assembly, a being of pure energy whose voice could reshape the fundamental forces of physics, addressed him directly. Marcus Riley of Earth, you have caused significant disruption to the established order of galactic security. Riley took a sip of his coffee and nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, I figured that might be an issue. But in my defense, your established order was making a lot of really sad, lonely cosmic entities even sadder and lonelier. That didn't seem right to me. You do not understand the magnitude of what you have done. Another elder spoke, their words creating visible ripples in space-time. These entities were imprisoned for the safety of all life in the galaxy. Were they, though? Riley asked mildly. Because from what I can tell, most of them were locked up because nobody bothered to actually talk to them first. And now that someone has, they are turning out to be pretty decent folks who just want to contribute to society. The silence that followed was profound enough to make several junior attendees question their understanding of reality. Finally, the speaker addressed Riley again. You claim these beings can be rehabilitated, already happening, Riley replied cheerfully. We have got a 93% success rate so far. The other 7% just needed more specialized therapy approaches. Turns out, even cosmic horrors respond well to basic empathy and meaningful work opportunities. One of the elders leaned forward. And what of the truly dangerous entities, the ones that cannot be reasoned with? Riley's expression became more serious. Well, that's where things get interesting. See, we have discovered that most of the really dangerous ones aren't actually cosmic horrors at all. They are more like cosmic antibodies. Reality's immune system responding to threats that most species can't even perceive. He pulled out what appeared to be a data pad, held together with more duct tape and human ingenuity. Take Azathoth, for example. Everyone thinks he's this mindless destroyer, right? Turns out he's actually reality's maintenance system. All that destruction he causes, he's cleaning up dimensional parasites and temporal viruses that would otherwise unravel the entire space-time continuum. The assembly erupted into what could charitably be called organized chaos, as beings who had spent millions of years assuming they understood the fundamental nature of reality suddenly discovered they'd been completely wrong about almost everything. When order was finally restored, the speaker's voice carried a tone I'd never heard from an elder before. Uncertainty, Marcus Riley of Earth. If what you say is true, then we have made errors of cosmic magnitude. Riley nodded sympathetically. Yeah, it happens. The important thing is that we are fixing it now. And honestly, most of the folks you imprisoned are pretty understanding about the whole thing. They know you were just trying to protect everyone. What do you propose we do now? Riley finished his coffee and stood up. Well, I figure we keep doing what we are doing. My team and I will continue working with the entities that want rehabilitation. The Council can help by updating your threat assessments and maybe providing some official recognition for our program. And maybe, just maybe, next time you encounter something you don't understand, you could try talking to it before locking it away for a few thousand years. As the meeting concluded and Riley prepared to leave, the speaker made one final statement. Marcus Riley of Earth. The Assembly hereby grants you and your associates full diplomatic status and recognizes your organization as an official galactic institution. May your unique approach to cosmic diplomacy continue to surprise us all. Riley grinned and headed toward the door. Oh, it will. We have got a meeting with something called the Outer Gods next week. Apparently they have been trying to get someone's attention for about 50,000 years. Should be fun. As his ship departed Nexus station, surrounded by his growing fleet of reformed cosmic nightmares, I realized that Marcus Riley had done something that would reshape galactic civilization forever. He had proven that the most terrifying forces in the universe weren't immune to the simple human superpower of making friends. And somehow that made the universe a safer, stranger, and infinitely more interesting place to live.